I am going to open up the panel for questions. When you ask a question, I'll repeat the question so that it gets onto the video, and then they'll fight to answer you. The question was gaming. We haven't talked about gaming, and it's a big part of what it could be a big part of wearables. And specifically, is there a wearable that can help get to higher levels on Candy Crush?
Yes. No, I would argue that there's a far better version. So one of my research interests is in gaming and like whole home entertainment. I think, so like the augmented reality I was describing, I think where it can get a foothold is not like out walking around in the street, but in the living room. And so I could go on a long spiel about this because I feel very strongly about it, but I'll keep it short. But you know, there's no reason that all of our content that we consume in the living room has to be on a flat rectangle. You know, that's just a byproduct of very old technology. And so I think that there's a lot of exciting ways that the content can come out of that flat rectangle into the living room with us. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for using these wearable and augmented reality technologies with gaming. There was Microsoft showed something called the Illuma Room at CES where they were using projectors, but they were basically filling the room with the ambiance of the game. So like if it was snowing on the screen, then it's like snow is appearing all around you in the room. And I think that's just one very, you know, kind of whimsical look at that idea. So yeah, I think absolutely there's a lot of opportunity because people will pay a lot of money for entertainment. They'll pay for healthcare stuff and they'll pay for games. So,
and you are starting to see some gaming when it comes to fitness devices and healthcare, just through social media, people showing off how much they went out and ran or what they worked out today. So that it's slowly getting integrated, but there's certainly opportunities for more.
Well, with us in the fashion industry, it is the new buzzword. The whole gaming industry. I was at a conference. The conference I was at, Mindy Grossman, the head of HSN. Right now, the average woman that shops HSN, in between shopping, she wants to play a game. They're very big into the gaming industry, and she's actually been talking to us a little bit because they're trying to figure out what they can do to create more exciting fashion-related games to the woman that's shopping on HSN during the day or online. So it's a big new area.
Yeah, back to the health and gaming. There was a project in our lab it was Mobile Dance Revolution, and it was little things that you tied on to your tennis shoes and you played it on your phone. So you danced and then it worked on your phone. So it was kind of cool. So the question was about the digital divide and the impact it's going to have on our society between kind of the haves of this technology and the have-nots of this technology. Is there?
Well, speaking to healthcare, it's who's paying for it. I think I mentioned that before. So once this gets implemented and there's the incentives in place, not necessarily for me, the patient, to be paying for it, but for the insurance company or the doctors to be paying for it, then that issue somewhat goes away, provided they have access to care. So I think for healthcare, there's an answer there. I can't speak for some of the other verticals, though.
Well, at Georgia Tech, there's a lot of work in civic computing and computing for good, and some of my colleagues have looked at, you know, like the impact of people that are homeless having smartphones. And you know, some people, when they hear that, they kind of sneer, like, you know, why would you want a homeless person to have a smartphone? But in fact, that technology can transform someone's life because suddenly you are always reachable. You can be in communication with your family. You have a way that like a potential employer could contact you. You have a way of like getting information off the web about like possible jobs or shelters that you can go to, services that you can get. So I think it's definitely a concern that these expensive devices that help some people, you know, become much more effective and efficient and connected, and you know, other people don't have it. That could be a problem. But I also think that it can be used as a way to help raise people up that are, you know, otherwise like disenfranchised.
The question was about our pets and wearables. Actually, my major research project right now is on, it's called FIDO, Facilitating Interactions for Dogs with Occupations. And it's a set of wearables for dogs, specifically assistance dogs, so that if I have a hearing impairment and the doorbell rings, right now what the dog does is get up and he goes to the door and he comes back. Well, hopefully I have a large, wonderful house, so I don't see what he's doing. In this instance, he could grab a little pull toy on his vest and pull it, and he would know which one to pull, and it would send me a text message that says there's somebody at the door. Or if there's a tornado siren, there's no way for a dog to take you to a tornado siren, so the dog could pull another tab or touch another point on his vest to say there's a tornado siren, and you get a text. So the dog can tell you things specifically, obviously. I mean, if I gave my dog one of these vests, it would just say more, 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 more.
Text messages all day long.
Yeah,
like,
I'd be at work and
hey,
be like, outside, please, outside. But for search and rescue, we're looking into dogs for, looking into vests that have a GPS location, but also allow the search and rescue dog handler team to communicate back and forth to each other. So if I'm out in the field, I could pick a point in the field or drag an area, and the dog would have vibration motors in the vest to steer it, and it would be trained to go where the vibration motors were telling it to go. And then it could, if it found somebody, it could stay with that person rather than running back. So right now they run back and forth to tell you where the person is. And if it's a child and the child keeps running, then the dog can stay with the child and let you know they found them. So there's a lot of...
But you were talking also with that, because I thought it was interesting, it's going to tell the child that it's not afraid of it?
Oh yeah, before you send the dog out, you could have the parent pre-record a message on all the dog vests that says, hey, this dog is nice, don't worry about it, we're coming to find you, kind of thing. So there's actually, I could go on and on and on about wearables for dogs.
Yeah, at the real basic level, and I think you mentioned Amber. I mean, they have the collars now. We have the technology. You can set up geofences so you get alerts if they're not where they're supposed to be, or if they get away, and go and find them. The costs are coming way down on those types of products.
So the first question was, is there any research being done in performance enhancement? And the second question was about incoming data affecting a person's mood or being able to control someone remotely. So we were talking about wearables, not implantables, but I'll move forward with that in that I think the information that you get can affect you, right? So I think when you do design wearables, especially displays, if you're in a meeting, you want to be able to filter through that information and quiet information at certain times so that you're not completely inundated all the time with information. So if I was sitting in an important meeting, I would probably pick a quieter setting on what was being fed to me information-wise. Did you guys? So the question was about concern about control through wearable devices. Is there any?
Well, I know recently the whole Tory Burch thing with the bracelets and everything going into that was a big, a lot of the blogs and conversations, where's this data going, what's going to happen with it all, and there was a lot of conversation about that. I don't, that's not my area of expertise. Is that?
Yeah, from a healthcare wearable perspective, that's one of the issues I mentioned before is FDA. So that's exactly, they're not looking for that specific issue maybe, but in general they're trying to assess, is this device secure, what's happening, what's it actually doing, what is it capable of doing, before they'll say, yeah, this is all right, we can sell this.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. When you were saying those things, I was thinking the types of wearables that I tend to work with, but I guess you could call an insulin pump a wearable because you wear it on your body. So if these things start to be able to be remotely controlled, or there's now a network that people can hack that your wearable is attached to that cloud, I guess there is a lot of security concerns in that way. So the question is about hijacking your wearables, and if someone can hijack your wearable and your security, which goes back to privacy, but also people stealing information from you and what's going on in your life to be able to do harmful things.
It's kind of, it's in this whole mobile world though. What we're seeing in retail right now, and what's the hackers and everything that's happening, and people stealing your information. There was Women's Wear Daily, one of our industry trade publications. Biggest thing with Target right now is is trying to get that customer back to them. So again, if people get it hacked, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be more concerned about not hacking the device, but hacking wherever that data from the device is going, and that's going to be an issue whether it's data coming from the device or the data coming from your phone.
So the question here is, I've already got some great devices and I need a fashionable way to carry them. And why don't we see more fashionable ways to carry these devices? I'll let you start, and then I've got some things.
There's been so much written about it, and there's so many designers looking at it. I've seen a number of prototypes, and with putting them in all the different areas. It's just, again, it all comes down to cost. Is there a big enough market to develop this, and will the customer want this? I mean, even down to Prada and stuff is trying to do carryable devices for your iPhones and your iPads and all that kind of stuff, but when it actually comes to your coat and things like that, it's more of an overcoat that's being developed right now, really not a blazer. But I know but again, there's this whole thing in the fashion industry about cut, fit, style, and with all of this in there, is that going to still make the look of the design look desirable with all of these things involved with it?
Form follows function.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and why I'm excited to have this panel up here, is because I've taught fashion design at Savannah College of Art and Design, and I teach wearable product design at Georgia Tech, and I teach mobile and ubiquitous computing at Georgia Tech. And the students that I get in those different classes are completely different types of people. So when I teach a fashion design class and I use words like design, just the word design means something completely different to those two types of people. And so if you set down a fashion designer and a computer scientist and ask them to work on a project together, it would be like setting down someone from England and someone from France that didn't know the same language. It's that big of a divide between the disciplines. It's not just the language, it's also the time frames. The engine that runs fashion fashion is owned by businessmen, not by creative, wonderful people. So fashion is actually mandated to run on a 6-month cycle by people who look at trend books so that they can reduce their risk to be able to say, okay, John Galliano, you've made some really crazy stuff, but I see because you use this trend book that I gave you, there's like red and orange because those are the colors, right? So they lower their risk that way. And the reason I'm bringing all that in is that fashion designers, because they think completely differently and they're trained completely differently, when I taught the class, I told them, oh, I work in wearable electronics. They got really excited about it. And they said, bring them in, I want to see them, I want to see them. And so I bring in, a very pretty piece of fabric, but it's hooked up to a breadboard with wires and resistors. And they're just like, no, I can't do it. I see it and I can't do it. I'm not touching it. I'm staying 5 feet away from it. And so the key and the goal is to get the two industries talking to each other to find out those places of innovation in between. Because if they keep working in this way, in this direction and in this direction, there's going to be great things that come up, but it's when those two industries can come together in that middle ground where true innovation can happen.
But the dialogue has started, and I know your question, I can't tell you how many people have asked the same thing. How can I get all of this into my top coat or whatever it is? And it's something, from what designers will say to us is when we look at it, is these are changing so much, we don't actually know what to design for. The sizes are different, everybody's different. We don't know what exactly we're designing for. And so that's where they're more, is it an iPad case, is it a briefcase, whatever, than more your clothing garments right now.
I think that's why you see like tech companies make iPad cases more than you see fashion companies make iPad cases. Mm-hmm. If Apple got together, let's just talking about iPad, if Apple got together with the fashion industry and said, okay, I'm going to release an iPad every 6 months and I'm going to give you the specs 2 years out,
But again, I think
then you would have great cases coming from like Prada.
With Angela going now to Apple, I think you're going to see a whole change in fashionable products now, because this is her main goal and what she's creating. And that is the conversation of the industry of where we're going to take this now. So I think the dialogue's been created. Now people are ready to start making some products. I think it's going to happen.
Maribeth, did you have something to say?
I was just wondering why maybe you could just make it culturally okay for a man to carry a purse.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
So the question was, in the next 5 to 10 years, what do we believe as a panel we will see? And will it be good, hopefully?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen, but as you know, with Macy's and so many retailers now, different from luxury, but ready to wear, we've got this what's called mean and lean, and we've got the customer's bored, so we've got to bring in new stuff more often than we ever did. It used to be a 6-month cycle. Now, I mean, you take a Forever 21, where a designer designs 8 collections a year, Forever 21 designs 40 collections a month. So this is moving faster, and they've got to implement some of these within it, but it's going to be training them to do it. But I think you will see it in the future, but it's going to be something that the consumer's got to want. Because right now, when they're putting some of the stuff out there, the consumer's not buying it, so they don't think it's profitable. So they're not gonna. It's not something they're looking at that closely yet.
Thank you very much. Again, let's thank our panel, and to Roger.